Sorry. I'd like to say sorry for lying to everyone.
Ha! Hello everybody, hope you're having a great day. Here's Val with another video to keep your boredom at bay. I absolutely loved the beginning of this episode. Seeing Lyanna for the first time was really exciting, and not only that, but just seeing Winterfell the way it was in season 1 again. It was all very nostalgic. I kinda would have preferred if this flashback had had more cuts to different scenes, like maybe Bran was watching them in the courtyard 1 second and then in the next second he's in another area of the castle seeing something else happen. Maybe more interactions between other Stark family members. But I can understand why they would want to keep it simple and only show characters we're already familiar with in the show, so as not to confuse people who don't read the books. I'm surprised it didn't make Bran say Roderick's name though. I mean, to me his beard was a giveaway, but some people were still confused. We are going to see more flashbacks though, and I'm not just talking about the Tower of Joy and the flashback with the Night's King. It's rumored that we will see a young Robert Baratheon interacting with a young Ned, and we will even see what actually happened to Hodor too. A colleague of mine shared this cool idea that what happened to Hodor was Ned's fault, and that it was that moment that turned Ned from a kid into a man of duty, when he decided it was his duty to take care of Hodor, since he was the one responsible for his loss of speech. And although I really like that idea, I also think that based on the fact that they made Hodor so relevant to this scene, this seemed more like a setup for something bigger than just Ned's personality. Maybe it's related to Benjen, maybe that's why Benjen joined the Night's Watch. Either way, it's only a matter of time before we find out. The scene with Meera after that was packed with clear foreshadowing that they will be leaving the cave this season, as a lot of us were already convinced that they would. What will make them leave though is not clear yet, but I'm guessing it may be when Bran gets a vision of the approaching army of the White Walkers and Whites. Having a scene about Castle Black right after that makes me feel more of a connection between Bran and Jon. I still think Bran will head to Castle Black, although in interviews it sounded like Bran and Jon did not film scenes together, so we'll have to see. Now here, the wildlings came to the rescue, just as a lot of us predicted, but I was still super pumped to see it happen. I did think there would be a lot more deaths, but it makes sense that they wouldn't want to fight the wildlings when they had a giant on their side. You know, it reminds me of...
I have an army. We have a Hulk.
I also always thought the guy with the crossbow wasn't trying to kill Won, but accidentally hit the trigger, from nervousness or something. I may be wrong, but I like that version of the story better, it's a lot funnier. They end up putting the traitors in cells, and it made me wonder if the show was going to use regular cells or the ice cells that are mentioned in the books. Those sound brutal though, a lot worse than just getting executed. I loved the introductory scene for the new zombie mountain. That head splatting was perfect. Just the right mix of badass and funny. The scared look on the soldiers' faces was really funny too. I'm not the only one who noticed Tommen's crown looked like he was squeezing his head, right? Anyway, in this scene we see the High Sparrow once again with this overthrowing an empire thing he continues to go on and on about. It makes me feel like it's not going to happen because they're making it too obvious. Except the show also gave us this poop. I'll get back to that later. We see Tommen go to his mother for advice later on, and this also is making me think she will teach him some manipulation skills. Maybe Tommen tricks the High Sparrow into believing that he's being brainwashed by him, and then ultimately ends up turning against him for his mother's sake. This may not go well for Tommen though. We all know the probability of him dying is very high right now. It would be really interesting to see it being caused indirectly by Cersei, since we saw her almost kill him directly once. Maybe she will push Tommen too far, or Tommen will push himself too far for her. And if Tommen dies without an heir, who would have the right to sit on the throne then? That's an interesting power vacuum. When I was thinking this episode was already awesome enough, we get none other than the scene when Tyrion releases the dragons, and it was just as tense and scary as I expected. I have a lot to say about this, especially related to predictions, but I will leave that for another time. It's really hard to figure out what Tyrion would stop drinking for if he can do so many things so well while drunk. Could release dragons be the one thing that does it? It did seem like Tyrion and Varys may have left the door open, but we can't confirm that yet. Now I'm also wondering if the fire that we saw one of the dragons spitting out in the trailer was only added for the trailer, or if someone else is gonna get burnt and eaten. I just can't wait to see more of these dragons. Also, I keep hearing that Tyrion has been reduced to just comic relief, but I don't know why people think this. Tyrion has been the show's comic relief since season 1, and he's still doing cool shit on top of that even now. But that's just my opinion. Arya continues her blind training. She passed her test this time though, so she's finally going back to the House of Black and White. And we know she'll have some more blind training over there before she gets her eyes back. How did she know where her bowl was? I don't know. But I was also thinking, maybe Arya only dealt with one no-one person in this scene, and they just switched faces like before. Jaqen and the Waif were the same person. But every time we've seen them do that before, they don't change their clothes, so maybe it was two people testing her here. In any case, if Arya ends up killing the Waif or Jaqen, I'm sure we will see someone else wear their faces later on. Okay, so this is the crappy scene I brought up before. I loved getting my prediction right that Ramsay would kill Roose and Fat Walda, although it's not likely now that he will flay them, but it just happened in such an anticlimactic way, or at least Roose's death did. And I was just mentioning this in my last video, how Roose was taunting Ramsay so much it seemed he was doing it on purpose, and he had an ace up his sleeve, waiting for Ramsay to bite the bait. How did he not see this coming? How did he let his guard down and get stabbed so easily? If this is really the end for Roose, then I am very disappointed with his storyline. Roose is a smart guy. I could have sworn he had a plan behind all of this taunting. But who knows, there's still 8 episodes left. I can hope. And yes, little Lord Karstark here was in on it. Could this line be foreshadowing someone's death?
If you acquire a reputation as a mad dog, you'll be treated as a mad dog. Taken out back and slaughtered for pig feed.
Just like Littlefinger foreshadowed Tywin's death?
They die squatting over their chamber pots.
Maybe someone will be fed to the pigs at Winterfell. And what did we see in the first scene of this episode? Dun dun dun! Okay, before you believe I'm serious, let's move on. Yep, most tense scene in TV history. And why did you walk in there, Walda? Also, it seems I gave the show too much credit with the explanation for the missing Bolton officer in my last video. I loved this scene because of how much I was feeling for Theon. I could really feel the tears coming when he said he didn't deserve to be forgiven. Brienne and Sansa will head to the wall like I expected, and Theon will head to the islands. I know some people have suggested that he meant Winterfell when he said home, but from what I've seen in the news I follow, Theon will meet his sister again, and also right after Theon says home, they show us Pike. I kinda get a feeling that he just wants to go there to be punished by his own people instead of the Boltons or the Starks. Yara did tell him before,
"Don't die so far from the sea."
But I doubt Theon will be dying anytime soon. And you know what, Balin? There's stubborn people, there's some seriously stubborn people, and then there's fucking you, man, who I don't even know what to call anymore. How can someone reach such stupid levels of stubborn? I don't know, maybe his brain is gone all pruny from being next to the sea all the time, but I'm just so glad for Euron, dude. Finally someone who could shut him up. Euron was the character I knew I would see in this episode when I found out the name of the episode was Home. I kinda really wanted his scene to be placed right after the dragon scene though, to get some sort of connection there. But we may see that in another episode, or the show may change things. There's lots to nitpick here, but I don't want to do that. I will just say that I was super excited to see Euron, and this scene definitely satisfied me. I really hope he's brought that dragon binder with him in the show. Oh, also, but either way I feel like him taking off his hood here will be the introductory scene for Euron Greyjoy as a new character in the show. Not the hardest thing to predict, but one of the many little things I predicted correctly. Yeah. I agree with those people who say this scene wasn't very clear, if you didn't read the books. They make it sound like choosing a ruler with a Kingsmoot is the way things have always been done, but in the book you understand it's something Damphair brings back for specific reasons. They also didn't give any hints to the audience that this guy is Damphair, and that he was Baelin's brother and Yara's uncle, or nuncle. They could have easily included that in the dialogue, so I'm not sure why they didn't. Maybe they just left it for another episode, or maybe they're not including Damphair's character at all. I'm excited to see what Yara does though. Will going to Essos be her own plan, or will she get sent there by Euron? Anything can change in the show. Finally, we're brought back to Castle Black. And yes, it is weird that Davos, someone who has always been opposed to all of this dark magic, is all of a sudden the one asking for it, suggesting something that he shouldn't know is possible. I did watch the video where David and Dan explained Davos' reason to ask for magic, and they said it was because Davos had nothing to lose at this point, so he might as well. But they don't explain why he would come up with that idea in the first place if he's never seen Melisandre bring anyone back from the dead. He's only seen her kill people. But hey, it's not impossible. Maybe he had the whites in mind when he came up with it or something. The other thing people found weird is him caring about Jon enough to consider something as crazy as a resurrection attempt. I don't think it's that weird, I think he cares just because of how awesome of a leader he was. Maybe he doesn't think anyone could do as good a job at it as him. Jon was the guy who knew all the right things that needed to be done, and the only crow the wildlings had ever followed. Davos also knew Stannis had seen something in Jon. Stannis probably communicated that. There's plenty of reasons for him to care about Jon, it just would have made a bit more sense for Mel to come up with the resurrection idea. Now you guys remember that line from Tommen in the trailer when he said, "I thought he was the man to lead us through the long night, but I was wrong"? He hasn't said that yet. I don't think he'd be saying that about Mance at this point, he's gotta be talking about Jon. So I think this will be what he's saying to either Ed or Davos, right after they left the room and right before Jon shows up. They'll have time to talk. Jon still needs to get his shit together and find something to cover himself up with. And just like a lot of you, I freaked the F out when he opened his eyes. But it was the best jump scare of my life. I've gotta say, I actually really like the fact that D&D tried so hard to keep it a secret by making Kit lie to everyone, because even though I was 100% sure he'd be back, I did start doubting it just a little bit. Always had that tiny doubt in the back of my mind, and that's what helped make the resurrection scene so freaking exciting. Without the doubting, I wouldn't have been nearly as happy and relieved to see it actually happen. All in all, this was an excellent episode in its own way. Lots to nitpick, but looking past that, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I will give it a 10 out of 10 if we find out Roose did have an ace under his sleeve. Some of you know I recently got featured in a Game of Thrones video by the channel Tale Foundry. If you're into writing and storytelling about fantasy and fiction and nerdy things, you should really check them out. They've only been around for a little bit, but the quality of their videos is awesome. Every month they make a video where they share something that inspires them, and then the next video they use that inspiration to write a new original story. I can definitely see their potential to get big in the future, and I will be supporting them every step of the way, until they surpass me or something. I'm happy to be part of it from this early on though. So remember to leave a like if you like this video, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one! You know, some people were saying that it's not exciting to watch these episodes because we predicted everything, but I personally think that seeing all of these predictions be right is super exciting. Maybe it's because this is the first time I make predictions. I don't know.